Hey everyone, it's Monday, it's 7 p.m., which means it's Project Livestream time, bringing you some live streams from South Africa every Monday night. Send us a hello wherever you're watching this from in the world, or wherever you're watching this from in South Africa. Please let us know in the comments where you are. If you're watching this on replay, also send us a comment, even if you're watching this not live, just to let us know what you're up to. For those of you that are new to the Expedition Project, my name's Roger, the proud founder of this project that's now fast approaching its 10th year in driving change in conservation and community development. Wow, I must say there's so much happening in South Africa at the moment. We're still waiting to hear back from the court appeals that are happening down in the Eastern Cape with regards to the rhino poaching. Travel restrictions have obviously lightened and been lifted slightly in South Africa now, so people are starting to hit the roads again. Tourism is starting to open up, which obviously starts to affect conservation so much more now in a positive way, and hopefully we can start to get out of this weird time that we've been living in. We've also, from the Expedition Project point of view, we've started to launch some really exciting projects, online courses that are now hosted at the Expedition Project website. These are now available for kids, as well as vet students, as well as anyone really that wants to get involved in conservation, wildlife conservation, environmental conservation, the UN global goals. There's a whole lot of stuff happening there, so go and check it out. Send us your feedback, and we'd love to hear how you're getting on with those and what you think. But back to tonight, very excited to have Vet Books for Africa that are going to be joining us for the second time now. What I really like about these guys, and what I found resonates so much with me, and I find so similar to the Expedition Project, is they're not just one of those sort of feel-good advertising campaigns that are doing trips around just to, self-promote and stuff like that, which is very much the angle that the Expedition Project came from several years ago. They're all about short-term and long-term impact and really repeating the things. And they've been around 27 years, so they've really starting to get a hang of what works and what doesn't work. So really interested to speak to them tonight. But before we get them to join up, let's just have a little check out, see what they've been up to.
Vet Books for Africa is a student-driven initiative started in 1993 by veterinary students from the Faculty of Veterinary Science at the University of Pretoria.
The team consists of 8 students who undertake a 6-week trip once every 2 years to deliver textbooks, journals, supplies, and equipment of veterinary interest to remote veterinary faculties, sanctuaries, animal rehabilitation centers, and community veterinary clinics in Africa. The team also offers education, treatment, and advice to local communities in the traveled areas.
As you can imagine, a project of this magnitude requires a lot of hard work to plan, prepare, and raise the necessary funds. Costs include all of our transport and accommodation while en route, as well as the collection of textbooks and equipment to hand out on our trip. As we are a non-profit society affiliated with the university, we solely rely on donations and sponsors.
Unlocking the true potential of conservation in Africa through the education of its people. One Health, One Africa.
So with that, I'm thrilled to have some of the Vet Books for Africa guys join us tonight. How you doing, guys? Okay?
Good, thanks. And you, Roger?
Brilliant, fantastic. So do you guys just want to go around and just tell us a little bit about who you are and what you're involved with regards to Vet Books for Africa? Maybe start with you, Gerard.
Good evening, everyone. As Roger introduced me, I'm Gerard. I'm the current chairperson of Vet Books for Africa. I'm also a fourth-year veterinary student at the Honors Depot Faculty of Veterinary Science in Pretoria in South Africa. And I have a special interest in wildlife and production animals.
Cool. Gerard, I think if we've got quite a few people tuning in from the UK, we should maybe have a UK version of how to say your name as well. I'm not sure how you can advise us here, Roger. I'm not sure. Gerard, probably perfect. Gerard for us, but thanks very much for having me. So, my name is Dean Carlisle. I'm the founder and CEO of Lessons in Conservation. So we're one of Vet Book for Africa's partners, and you'll hear a little bit more about the partnership going on. So I've got a zoology background. I completed my honors in zoology at the end of 2018 and founded Lessons in Conservation during my honors year, during the year 2018.
Evening, everyone. I'm also a fourth-year student with Gerard at the Honors Depot at the University of Pretoria. So I'm also part of the Vetbooks team. I'm with another colleague of mine, part of the route and itinerary portfolio, and we plan the route, find the equipment, make sure accommodations, everything's in order.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, guys. So just a reminder to everyone watching that you can send in your questions. We're going to be talking about a few topics with Vetbooks for Africa for a little bit, and then we're going to bring in Dr. Peter Rogers, who world-renowned wildlife vet and also ex-University of Pretoria, so alumni from there as well. So we're very excited to bring him in a little bit as well after we've spoken to Gerard, Dean and Xander for a little bit. But yeah, send us your questions in the meantime. Have a think of what you might want to ask these guys. I know there's some vet students watching in the UK and hopefully all over the world as well. So it's going to be really nice to get a current student perspective from these guys, as well as, internationally as well. And then obviously bring in Peter as well to discuss, what it was like when he was a student, as well as what he's up to right now. So Gerard, maybe start with you. It's been a while now, a couple of months since we last spoke, right in the midst of lockdown. So what's sort of changed in your mission and your focus now for what you guys have been doing?
So yeah, thanks, Roger. It's become such a cliche for everyone to say, but 2020 definitely didn't pan out the way anyone planned, and in the beginning of the year, and even since April, it has really not panned out the way we were hoping and planning it to go. We unfortunately had to cancel our long-awaited gala dinner that we were very excited and worked tremendously hard to make it happen, and we unfortunately had to postpone it to next year, which was really sad for us. But nonetheless, we remain passionate about our mission and vision, and nothing has really changed for us in that regards. We have worked hard to make a lot of things happen in the meantime. We worked hard to keep things going and kept on having meetings online and that sort of thing. And yeah, we came to a point now where our route is planned, and we're just waiting for international borders to open.
Sure. I tell you, this must be completely unprecedented now for you guys. You've been around 27 years, and it's probably the first time you've had a real delay like this, I would think.
I'm not too sure, but I think in the second year of Vetbooks for Africa's existence, they also had a delay. So it's not the first time. We're not the only ones. So there is hope.
So Dean, what about you? So you're sort of mainly involved in the lessons and conservation side of things. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So essentially, Gerard is a good friend of mine. So that's, at the end of the day, relationships and what we're doing. It's what drives it all. It's relationships. So he was a good friend of mine, and I heard a little bit about Vetbooks for Africa, and I was very interested. Lessons in conservation had just started out doing what we were doing. And Gerard basically said, we go on this incredible trip. We want to change lives, and we do a little bit of environmental education or conservation education with some of the children in the areas. And I said, it's fantastic, and this is a fantastic avenue that we can use to potentially teach more children. So essentially, lessons in conservation, I'll give a 5-minute breakdown as to who we are and what we do. So in one line, we're a student-run environmental education non-profit organization working throughout Southern Africa or Sub-Saharan Africa as a whole. So we were founded in May 2018, and we essentially work on two things. We want to educate and inspire. So the education is with children from rural or underprivileged backgrounds across Sub-Saharan Africa. That's who we're looking to educate. The inspire are students. We want to get people at university to understand that at the age of 18, 19, 20, 21, you really do have the ability to change the world. And that's basically the mantra or the motto that we're trying to get across to them, by giving them this platform that they can use to go and actually do work in the communities firsthand and figure out how it actually goes. So we have a 6-lesson syllabus, which is interactive. We want the kids to understand this is not school. So we use the youngsters, the students that have energy. They are actually excited about this conservation stuff that they're teaching. So we have 4 set lessons and then 2 area-specific lessons. So obviously, conservation, you need locally crafted solutions for local problems. You can't have a brushstroke. So those area-specific lessons change depending on which country we're working in, because each country across Africa will have different problems that they're dealing with in the conservation sphere. Then after the lessons, we take the children on excursions into wildlife areas. So that's essentially, so we want the children to fall in love with nature. We want them to learn to speak her language, essentially, and spread her story with all those in their community. So if we don't have people going out and becoming ambassadors for conservation, we feel that we haven't really done our job. So our goal is to get a whole bunch of little ambassadors to run across the African continent, spreading our message. So, and then what we do, and this is where Vet Books for Africa come in, is that we run holiday programs or holiday expeditions. So as we are completely student run, we don't pay the volunteers that work with us. So each team has about 8 or 10 individuals working with different backgrounds. Some may be zoologists, some may be educationalists, some may be accountants, because we need someone to run our finances. So basically, regardless of your background, we get students in and get them working towards a common goal. So Gerard said we could partner and potentially grow our organization into other parts of Africa, because it hadn't even crossed my mind that there's other universities across Africa. And as soon as we made this kind of relationship, we realized that now we've got a vessel with which we can reach other universities and set up teams. So that's what we've done now. We've got teams set up at SUR, the Sokoine University of Agriculture, which is on our route through Vetbook. So it was through Gerard and Zander that we made these contacts. So we've now got two teams set up in Tanzania, a team currently being set up in Malawi, and a team coming in Kenya. So by the end of the year, we'll have teams in South Africa, 2 teams in Tanzania, a team in Kenya, and a team in Eswatini, which is where we do a lot of our work as well. So these holiday programs, essentially, we use as an incentive for the student-run teams. So the students don't get paid, but they get paid in expeditions and unbelievable experiences. So we took Zander and one of the other Vet Books for Africa team members on a trip in December, which we called Beyond Borders, which was basically like a mini Vet Books for Africa trip. But we only went to Mozambique and Zimbabwe through Gonorrhoea National Park on the way out, an incredibly wild place. And we touched the lives of about 100 children there. And essentially, this relationship really does excite me, because the Vet Books team need all of 2 years to plan and execute what they're doing. And obviously, they learn skills as they go. So 2 of their team members will be joining us on this big trip we do in December every year, which really is exciting, and it just obviously enhances the partnership. So to date, Lessons in Conservation has given lessons to 1,640 children from 32 schools and organizations across 4 African countries. And by the end of the year, those numbers will hopefully be over 2,000, and it'll be 10 African countries. So small little student-run organization with a plan to teach 20 children has exploded a little bit. And thanks as well to Gerard and Zander for forming this partnership. And who knows from here? It really does excite us. And at the end of the day, we really believe that every interaction can change the world. We genuinely do believe that. And we just want to instill in others that they really do have the ability to change it. Even if it's the teller at the supermarket, they might not know why plastic bags are bad. So explain to them why plastic bags are bad, and then who knows, next time it might change their opinion. So that's essentially what Lessons in Conservation is. It's giving students a platform to educate youth from underprivileged Southern Africa.
I mean, you're speaking about it with such passion, Dean. That's absolutely fantastic. And it's so funny, because you guys say that it took you it takes you 2 years to plan each trip. I mean, when I did the first expedition project trip, and I only focus on South Africa, and I mean that takes like 8 months of time to plan that. Yeah. So I can't begin to imagine what it must be like to actually go throughout Africa. That must just be sort of mind-bending. Zander, do you want to tell us a little bit about the routes and from that side of point, what you guys have got planned?
Yeah, sure, I'd love to. So we traveled through 8 different African countries, all the way to Uganda and Kenya. We finally, as Gerard earlier said, we were all a bit struck by the pandemic. So we finally got our calendar for our holidays after the exams, and we could start confirming dates with accommodation, all the different entities we plan to visit. So we traveled from South Africa all the way, as I said, to Kenya, Uganda, all the way around Lake Victoria, and then back to South Africa. It's about 11,000 kilometers that the route itself, but we estimate it'll probably be around 12,000 with all the little bits and pieces coming from different entities, just doing our shopping, all that little details. So we've confirmed that the trip will be 43 days. We've planned the accommodation. We've spoken to everyone, the universities, charities, communities that we plan to visit. So we've confirmed with most of them. It's going to be 43 days. Out of those 43 days, we'll be traveling about 33 of them in the car. This will roughly come to about an average of 5 hours of driving per day. But luckily, some of them will be only 2 hours, but others will be between 12 and 11 hours. So it's going to be up and down the whole time. Hopefully, every time after long drives, we'll have a couple of days off. either to work with children, be at the universities, or just have a leisure day, do some team building, focus on the next part of our trip. So yeah, now at the moment we are basically just waiting for the borders to open. We have decided as a team we're going to continue planning our trip and prepare as much as we can. It's actually been going very well at the moment, with a lot of obviously you can imagine tourism all across Africa has been quite low, so people are very keen to help. They're keen to get people in and get their name out there as well. So we've had a lot of good feedback from a lot of the accommodation people we plan to visit and contacted. So yeah, as I said, now we're just hoping for the borders to open as soon as possible.
Wow, incredible. I mean, like, just the extent of that planning is just absolutely mind-boggling. So we're going to get to a little bit more about the prep and like, you know, what this sort of entails and sponsors and everything, and obviously how people can get involved as well. But let's mix it up a little bit and bring in a sort of an ex-University of Pretoria sort of alumni to come in. Let's get Dr. Peter Rogers involved. But before that, let's just have a quick look at some of the stuff that he's been involved with.
I've been involved with the wildlife industry for 35 years, and I think I've seen a pangolin in the wild maybe twice. They're very, very shy, and they're nocturnal animals, so it's a privilege in a way. It's not something people see every day. I'm Peter Rogers. I'm a wildlife vet working largely in the Greater Kruger Park, and this video is really about raising awareness of the plight of the pangolin. To poach a pangolin, you know, once you've got a pangolin in sight, it's got no defense mechanism in which to ward a person off. You can simply just go and pick it up. And then what they do is they keep them in containers, sometimes for weeks, until they find a suitable buyer. We have now been appointed at ProVet as you can call it the sanctuary or the rehabilitation first aid emergency treatment hospital for all the pangolins in this area. So we see them first, usually in very, very poor condition, you know, dehydrated, stressed as anything. And it's up to us to get them back to where they're actually in a fit state to be released again. This little pangolin's name is Aura. The reason she's called Aura is because she came in on a very, very windy night and she was confiscated in a sting. She was brought to us in an extremely dehydrated and emaciated condition. This is about 4 weeks ago now, and it is so exciting and so rewarding to see how she has come this far, that she's now strong enough to look after herself and fend for herself. She's just digging for food and eating ants. I mean, they eat thousands and thousands and thousands of ants every day. It's very labor intensive to look after them, take them out walking at night, bearing in mind that they eat for 8 to 10 hours a day. So whoever walks with them has got to spend the whole night out with them. When you see a success story like this, it makes everything worthwhile. And this is why we do what we do. This is not a 9-to-5 job. This is my hobby, and it's my passion. And I live my hobby. We need your help because it is labor intensive. You cannot believe it. Each pangolin needs to feed for about 8 to 10 hours a day. So it's one person who's got to be with that pangolin all the time. And when it comes in initially, it needs drips, and you've got to monitor it. And the only way to monitor its condition is to take blood. And we take blood from it on a weekly basis. Every time you take blood from it, you've got to anesthetize it. It's got to be supplemented with food every single day. It's tube fed with commercial supplements, and each time that requires an anesthetic. So the costs involved are astronomical.
With that, thrilled to have Peter joining us once again. Hey, Peter, how are you?
Hey, Roger. Good, thanks. How are you guys doing?
Good.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for joining us. That video, I tell you, it's absolutely incredible, and never get tired of watching those pangolins. They're the most fascinating animals, aren't they?
Yeah, it's amazing. We've just got 4 in our care at the moment, and unfortunately we had to euthanize one today because she just didn't do well at all. She was released in a reserve just a bit north of here, and she got harassed by a male. And by the time they found out, found her, she was in a very poor condition. So when we got her back in here, we didn't have much hope for her. We even gave her a blood transfusion, but sadly, this morning we actually decided to euthanize her. It's interesting to see that each pangolin's got its own personality. You could see that one in the video. Aura was very, very relaxed, but some of them just run like crazy, so that each one, there's no sort of stereotype. Each one's got its own personality.
I'm so sorry to hear about that pangolin that you had to euthanize. That's terrible. I mean, it's even saving one just means so much. So I can imagine that's not an easy thing to have to do. So you've obviously been watching a little bit about what we've been talking about with regards to Vet Books for Africa. Was anything like this available to you when you were at university?
Listen, it was such a long time ago that I don't think books were even invented. Before I say anything, it's a very, very small world, because I happen to know Zander and Dean very well. And but what's more important is that I know their parents even better. So I'm keeping a very careful eye on them here tonight.
Thanks, Pete.
The world, with technology, the world has become so much smaller, so these sort of efforts that these 3 youngsters are embarking on, it's so admirable, because, as we all know, the future of wildlife depends on these youngsters who are with us on the screen today, as well as, the younger ones. So, and it's all about education, as Dean said a little bit earlier. If we don't embark on these sort of missions and make a good stab at it, conservation, I'm afraid, is not in Africa anyway, is going absolutely nowhere.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the sort of the work and the efforts that goes into the planning, and it really comes through the sort of the short-term impact and the long-term impacts, because each year Vet Books from Africa, every 2 years, and I say, can learn from the successes and mistakes from the previous year and just keep growing, which is something that's so important to me for these kind of trips and projects, not just to be once-off things. You so often hear about trips where people have the best of intentions and will go out and do a trip, and it might just be one trip and then that's it, but the fact that these guys are repeating it over and over and can really build on each trip, I think is absolutely fantastic, and something I'm so behind. Before we get back to just asking Vet Books for Africa guys a few more questions, Peter, are there any stories that come to mind when you were actually at university that you found so useful in developing your skills, or kind of getting you even more inspired about what you were about to do as a career? The reason I ask is, obviously we've got students from the UK watching this, we've got students from the US watching this, we've got present students in Gerard, Dean and Zander, and then we've got obviously a past student like you. So I'd love to hear, even if it's just one story that you might be able to tell us.
Yeah, well, I was a bit of a dummy. I wasn't one of the bright guys, so it took me a few years to get into the veterinary faculty. So after my second year of BSc, my dad said to me, listen, he's sick and tired of paying for my holidays. I've got to get a holiday job. And fortunately, my dad's wife, she used to work in the Kruger. And she said, why don't you try and get a job in the Kruger? Now, my idea at the time was with my best mate, Dave Cooper, who's a very well-known vet in the Natal Parks Board. We were going to start a production animal practice here in Hoedspruit. But anyway, I was very lucky, fortunate to get involved in Kruger as a student, and that fueled my interest really in the wildlife side of things. And that actually inspired me to go into the conservation side of things. So it was a very difficult field in those days to get into, because there were no private wildlife vets. So having worked in Kruger as a student in all my university holidays, I was fortunate enough to be recommended to get a job in the then Natal Park Sport. So that was just a bit of fluke, but I pursued my dreams, and as I said in that pangolin video, that my job is my hobby. It's not a job. It's 7 days a week. Zonda knows. His mom phones me at all times of the day and night about this little elephant that she's looking after, and I love it. There's no time that somebody cannot phone me, and the more pressure and the more chaotic things are, the more I thrive. But it's got to be this sort of field that Dean's involved in, and Gerard and Zander and myself, or what they want to get involved in is it's a passion. It's not a 9-to-5 job. It's a way of life. If you want to make money, you're in the wrong game.
Thank you so much. Just out of interest, because you're obviously working around Kruger so much, have you noticed a big difference now that there's been so little tourism going on? I mean, are the animals acting differently right now?
What happened was that in Kruger, for example, and the greater Kruger, or largely Kruger, that the rhino poaching, I think it was in April, there wasn't one rhino poached. And the reason for that was because there was so little activity in the park. And really brought home that most of the poachers come in vehicles. They come in through the main gates of Kruger, and they are dropped off in the park, and then they walk out. So the lack of activity, I know I saw some videos on the Skukuza golf course of a lion kill and hyenas, riding around on Poiki number 9 or something. So I think the animals were a lot more relaxed, and it's just the thought that a lot of these roads in Kruger are dust. The cars cause a lot of dust, so that the food on either side of the roads are not pretty palatable. So I think in that time the animals were allowed to come closer to the roads and eat, on the road and that. So yeah, it had a side effect, a very good side effect on the rhino poaching, but of course now the rhino poaching is back to full steam again, and the pangolins.
It'd be interesting to see in the next few months as tourism slowly starts to open up. How that's going to affect animals and general ecosystem and stuff. It'll be very interesting actually to see. Shall we bring it back to VetBooks for Africa? Why don't I show a few photos now, and you guys can actually talk us through some of the stuff that you've sent in. So you sent us this one. Is this one of the vehicles that you actually go on the trips with?
So thanks, Roger. So this was on the 2018 trip. I believe this picture was taken at the University of Zimbabwe. So the 2018 trip had a problem. They couldn't find vehicles. So this is actually a vehicle from one of the committee members' father. So they had to look after it really specially. And So, but this is a typical drop-off, and the typical vehicle, how it will look with the stickers and the trailers to get everything accommodated and that sort of thing.
So if any volunteers join in, presumably you're just stuffing them in the trailer there somewhere, right?
That's where I sleep.
Okay, let's have a look at this. So what's happening here?
So that's the university in Uganda, the Makerere University. And yeah, as you can see, there's also a book handover that was done. And they just took a picture, I presume, with one of the students there next to the bus that was obviously very happy to receive some educational material.
So is this the kind of numbers in sort of people that be going on the trip? Is this the kind of is sort of what we'd be looking at?
So this year, permitting borders open, will be the biggest trip yet. Will be 10 people going. The previous trip was 9, and the trip before that, and the couple preceding that, was just 8 people on the trip. So this year we're pushing for the stars. We're going for 10, and hoping everything fits and everyone gets along on the 6 week long journey. So challenges lying ahead, but we'll overcome them and definitely push on.
Okay, and this is in Nairobi, is it?
Yes. I just would like to add, it's so amazing the students that you meet. Then I'm sure Dean can testify to this as well. One of the students that was involved in facilitating the VetBooks for Africa visit at the University of Nairobi in 2018 and in 2016 is Kelly Irwa, who has really grown into such an amazing vet. He's still busy with his postgraduate stuff, But I mean, he's so involved in conservation, and he really has a passion that he has taken it upon himself, and he's got other people involved with Dean to help set up the team in Kenya. So it's really amazing what students come out of these universities.
Amazing. And how about this? What's happening here?
Yeah, and I believe that is a charity handover where they handed over some equipment and also some books and articles that the charities required.
Okay, so let's have a look at some of the places that Xander was speaking about. I mean, it's actually incredible. Like, do you find there's a big difference between when you're crossing over borders, the further north you get? Do things is it starting to get more underprivileged, more rural, as you go further north, or what's the situation?
Gary, do you want to answer? So it depends on country to country. Different countries definitely are, some are more privileged, some are less privileged. Zimbabwe, for example, which is literally right here next to South Africa, is one of the worst ones. Then as you go, Zambia is a little bit better. Tanzania is very bad again. So it definitely depends on country to country. We don't visit Rwanda, but Rwanda's, I don't know if you guys have heard, but the amazing things that the country have done for conservation. So it not necessarily the more north you go, but as I said, just depends from country to country.
Yeah, Roger, I think maybe Dr. Rogers could also, Pete's obviously done work extensively. Some of us, because this trip's only coming up at the end of this year, like, I'm not sure about you, Gerrie and Xander, actually haven't asked you guys how much time you've spent up in East Africa. I've only spent a few weeks, so I haven't actually been there extensively. Maybe Dr. Rogers could let us know a little bit more about what potentially to expect in those areas. I don't know if you've spent any time up in those areas, Pete. I'm sure you have.
Yeah, I've spent some time in Kenya and Malawi, Gabon, Ivory Coast, but very short stints, Dean, so it was very difficult to form any sort of opinions. I must say Malawi, I did spend some time there when I was still with Natal Parks. I spent 2 stints there. And the thing is, the problem, and of course, Josh, my son Josh, he spent last year in Malawi as well, in the Wandi National Park doing his prac. And the big problem is the encroachment of people into these protected areas, the reserves and that. So, you guys, and you were speaking about it just now, Roger, that the continuity in this education that Dean and Gerard and Xander are doing, once off is not enough. It's something that's have to carry on from generation to generation. It's all about education, and it's the same with the pangolin. And it took me a while to persuade the people, but to be very honest, there are like 300,000 pangolins being poached every year. To save one pangolin, you're not saving the species. So when you've got that pangolin, you've got to take every opportunity to educate the community, whether it be the local schools or whatever. You've got to involve people that can see these animals and appreciate and learn about them. Just to rehabilitate one pangolin at a massive cost is not going to save the species. So it's all about continuity and education. And I'm very worried about the pressure of on the boundaries of these reserves that Dean and the 2 vet students are talking about. But you find Gerard was talking about that one vet student. You find these jewels every now and again, and it just makes it all worthwhile that you've at least got one guy that you've converted. We've got to go through, and it's up to these young guys to carry on what we've been fighting for all these years.
If you weren't working in South Africa, where you are, Peter, which sort of other country in Africa do you think would be second on your list to actually spend a lot of time and work?
I would like, probably, I don't know Mozambique very well. I've worked a bit in Zimbabwe, but I've worked also in Botswana, a lot in Botswana and Namibia. Those 2 countries appeal to me quite a lot. But the conservation efforts, we've got a big veterinary network, and the guys are doing some really, really good work. And funny enough, I just heard today, talking to one of my colleagues, Cobus Roth, that we've been unable to get permits to relocate leopards to these countries. I took some leopards many years ago to Majete Reserve in Malawi, but since then, permits to relocate them have just come up against the brick wall. And today I heard from Quibus that permits to take them to Gorongosa Reserve in Mozambique have probably been approved. So that's a step in the right direction, and it's all about communication. Between people like Dean, who'll be doing the work on the ground in the reserve as an ecologist or something, and the contact with youngsters like Gerard and Zander. What I really like seeing is this sort of this link between Dean on the zoological side and Zander and Gerard on the veterinary side. So it's all about, again, communication. And a lot of exciting things can be learned and traded, information traded, especially with this new technology like now. I mean, I'm speaking to you from jail.
So obviously tonight and through these live streams, we've been lucky enough to get some fantastic support from some universities in the UK, and I'd like to hear maybe a little bit from you, Dean, just briefly. It's someone that's recently graduated and now looking to get into conservation in South Africa. I know from the students that I speak to in the UK, they're passionate to get out to work and visit in the amazing place that is, of course, South Africa, and get involved in conservation, and more specifically get involved in ecology and get involved with wildlife, veterinary medicine and stuff like that. What challenges have you come across now since you've graduated?
Well, my story is actually quite an interesting one, Roger. So I set up lessons in conservation, as I said, while I was finishing off my studies in my honours year. And I also play cricket quite seriously. So I actually got a contract to play professionally overseas in Ireland. So I went to the UK and played a season of cricket and came back, and I've been running with lessons in conservation ever since. And I actually start in January. I'll be starting as a field guide. So I'm going to be starting as a field guide because it's been one of my childhood dreams. And I still believe that it's a good way to reach many people with influence. Working at one of the top end lodges in South Africa, you can reach people who then have reach to reach a lot of people and money behind them who can make a difference. So I'm going to be guiding for a while, and then I'll be going full time into lessons in conservation. So people coming from overseas, essentially one of the really exciting things that we have going at lessons in conservation, or are starting at the moment, is that we understand that students all over the world have this burning desire to go out and explore the wilds that are Africa. They hear stories and they see movies and all of those incredible things. So our plan is actually to set up volunteer programs. So during the summer holidays, whenever they may be, we'll have teams set up at different universities in the States and in the UK. So during the months outside of their summer holiday, they can be either going out and educating children in their particular sphere about some of the conservation problems, and then they'll come out to Africa on an incredible 5-week trip, not too dissimilar to the VetBooks trip actually, and visiting Kenya, Malawi and Tanzania and seeing some of the incredible work that we're doing in those areas. And hopefully they'll go back changed people, because those kind of experiences as an individual is very difficult to set up, because you need to know someone in the country. It's quite difficult just to arrive and hope that it'll all work. So we're hopefully going to be setting up these trips, which will allow people to get an inside view into what's happening in these areas. They'll be going to Ngorongoro Crater and Lake Manyara and some really incredible places across the African continent. Some of the world's wildest places in Botswana as well, in the Delta, like Pete said, an incredible place. So we're hoping to offer these experiences to get the people excited, and then they'll also be meeting people in these areas. So at the moment, you need to know people to get into the industry. So hopefully through these trips, they'll be able to meet people. And if they do feel that they'd like to leave the comfort of wherever they are and go get covered in dirt and work really long hours, they'll be able to meet the right people that can make that happen. So that's one of our plans that's in the pipeline. It'll probably only come to fruition in the next year or two. But we haven't forgotten about the Europeans and those from America that want to come out to Africa and experience the wilds. I'm sure Pete could talk for hours about the stories that he's had in these incredible places. And as he said, it's a hobby. So hopefully we want to show more people the incredible things that are out there.
Awesome. Keep us updated on the progress of that. That sounds phenomenal. Sounds really, really good. Gerard, so what's happening sponsor-wise? Are you guys all sorted? Presumably that's impossible to ever be 100% sorted, is it?
Roger, that's a difficult question. So yeah, like you said, we'll never 100% be sorted. But I must say it went quite well. We were quite diligent in starting the first year of our term. We started aggressively hunting sponsors, and we We landed a couple before this COVID pandemic struck. So it's going well. We really can't complain. I think we're better off than the last committee was. So things are going well, but I mean, we are reaching for higher heights, even higher heights. So even more money would be really, really greatly appreciated, which is so difficult to achieve in this difficult economic climate. But I must say, we really can't complain. Even during this COVID pandemic and the economic climate being as it is, we managed to land 2 new sponsors, which was really great for us. And then the best news of all is Mazda South Africa has agreed to give us vehicles for our trip. So we're just awaiting the final details of that deal, and then we should be sorted on that front as well. So yeah, all in all, we really can't complain.
That's amazing. Please let me know how you sorted out Mazda. I'm in dire need of a new vehicle myself, so that'd be great. That's amazing. Well done, guys. So we're going to have a few more minutes, and then we're going to sign off for the night. But I wondered, Peter, do you have any advice that you want to throw out to vets in South Africa or vets in the UK or the US internationally, that if you're sort of looking back over so many experiences that you've had over the years, that you would like to go back and tell yourself if back when you were actually a vet, or starting out to be a vet, shall I say?
Yeah. I think you must just follow your dream. As I say, I was very, very lucky, but also at the same time, I was in a government institution, and that's where I met Dean's dad, Les, who's done fantastic work in the wildlife world, also largely to do with education. But yeah, so I was very fortunate. And then when the wildlife industry turned, or already started in probably 2000s, I was able to go out on my own. But before that, it was really difficult. But I think you must just follow your dream, and eventually, I've been in the industry for 35 years. Somewhere along the line, you're gonna hit the lucky note.
Fantastic. So we've just got a question come through. Maybe Xander, you can answer this one because the person's got a similar name. Besides the dropping off of veterinary books, what are some of the other goals that you'd like to achieve with the Vet Books for Africa trip?
Okay, so I'm going to start off with the books. Where a lot of photos and a lot of all the stories that the previous committees told us, when you go into most of the universities that we visit, into the libraries, all the books have, when you open them, a Vet Books for Africa stamp. And it just shows that most of their libraries consist of books that were donated to them by previous committees. They don't normally have the textbooks and stuff that we get here, and that already is a major thing for us. So we would still like to do the books and keep on giving them books as much as we can. But a major thing as well is equipment. They need a lot of equipment, just from suture kits that they can practice on, and to stethoscopes that they can one day use in their practice. A lot of the universities themselves, for research purposes, they've asked for more expensive equipment that I don't think at this moment we'll be able to give them, but we are trying, and we're hoping to maybe one day get those equipment. But we really want to involve this community-based focus as well, like with Dean and them. We have started previously with small educational classes. We've with Kingsley Holgate Foundation, we've done some rhino and elephant art that we wanted to do on the trip, and now when Dean and them came on board, this will just be another whole new area that we can expand into, which will be amazing. So as Dean said, with the education, we don't care which type of education, from university students to small kids. At the end of the day, we aim to improve conservation or get these people into conservation.
Awesome. Thanks so much for that question, and thanks so much for answering. So to finish it off, obviously open to any one of you guys. What's your call to action for tonight? I mean, how can people get involved, either from wherever they are or actually get involved in the trip themselves? I mean, is that something that they can do, or what would you like to see out of the audience tonight?
Gerry, do you want to say something first?
Yeah, I'll just add. I think I'm not an experienced vet like Dr. Rogers here, so I probably can't give the expert advice. But I think, in my personal opinion, I think you must never think that any small thing you do is too little to make a difference. Small things add up to big things, and I think people must just, even if you do a small thing for conservation, it will add up to something, and in the end make a huge difference. If you give a small amount of money to someone who really makes a difference, it will make a difference. So yeah, that's just my piece of advice.
That's fantastic. And so how can people get involved with VetBooks for Africa? What's something that they can do from wherever they are in the world?
So I'll give over to Zander now, since he's so greatly involved with HESC. He'll just give you a little bit of update. We have some exciting things there. But then I'd just like to mention we are partnered with WCT, the Wildlife Conservation Trust, and under them we have a crowdfunding page on Global Giving. And between the 14th and 18th of September, they're running a little by little campaign by which people can literally donate the least amount of money that you want to, and they match it with their own funds. So you basically get double the amount of money that other people that you personally would have given. So that would really go a long way in helping us achieve our goal. And then Zander can just give us a small overview of the HESC experience.
Okay, so we have been, as we are only a committee of 8, we unfortunately cannot take more people into Africa every single time, just obviously space constraints and funding. We have been thinking a lot about how we can get people involved in VetBooks for Africa, trying to get them involved in a way that they can help and helping them. So we actually found a very nice way. We partnered with Hoedspruit Endangered Species Trust, which is a conservation center in Hoedspruit in Limpopo in South Africa. And we partnered them to give people a wildlife conservation experience. So by raising $500 for VetBooks for Africa, in any way possible, they can go to HESC for 5 days, food and accommodation included, and then help with the care of the animals. And very coincidentally, as Dr. Rogers also here, he is the main vet working at Hoedspruit Endangered Species Center. So in observing any veterinary procedures that they do at the moment there, as well as I said, taking care of the animals for that 5 days. So in this way, we help fund us for the trip, but we also give back in a way that they can get some experience into conservation. I think a lot of times people across, especially overseas, don't necessarily realize they just can't come to Africa and just be a conservationist. You have to start at the bottom. You have to go through and crawl through all the muck and stuff to get yourself to the top. You have to go through all the difficult times, scoop the poo and start at the bottom and work yourself to the top where you want to be. And this, I think, in my opinion, as Dean and Garrett really said, building relationships. This helps them build relationships, gain some basic experience, and have them realize what they actually want to do in conservation.
That's amazing. Thanks so much. So anyone wants to find out more about VetBooks for Africa, we do have a VetBooks for Africa page on the Expedition Project website. All their additional details are on there as well, so you get redirects to exactly some more information about them. And obviously feel free after this live stream, if you're watching in replay, to post any comments or any questions you've got, and obviously one of us can get back to you with some answers. But go and check them out. I mean, it's super amazing what they're up to. Gerard, Dean, Zander, Peter, thank you so much for joining tonight and chatting with us. It's been so interesting hearing what you've been up to and what you've overcome to actually get to where you are right now. And hopefully we can check in again in a couple of months and get another update.
That'd be great.
Thanks a lot, Roger.
Awesome.
Thanks for your time, Roger.
No, thank you guys. So just as we're signing off now, I'm just going to give you a little bit of a snippet of what Peter and myself have been up to with regards to some online courses that's super relevant for what we've been speaking about tonight. So we're starting to release some really fascinating wildlife veterinary online courses. A lot of it's focusing on clinical EMS, which is amazing. It's had some rave reviews so far, and we're so proud of the work that we've been doing. So we're going to give you a little snippet of what we've been up to, and then after that, that's game over for tonight. So thank you everyone for watching. Really been a pleasure as always. Keep sending us your questions, and we'll see you again this time next week. Thanks so much, everyone.
That's good.
Thanks.
We were called out to a white rhino bull in the Greater Kruger. It had a huge wound on the left side of its body and was really limping badly. We darted it from the helicopter. I used a low dose because I wasn't sure as to the severity of the wound, and it took a long time to react. And then when he did react, he didn't go down, so we had to approach him carefully. I didn't want to dart him again, So I approached him with a blindfold, and he didn't react too kindly to that. He turned around and sort of mock charged me, but I think he was too sore to do anything